My name is Peter Elias. I've been practicing primary care family practice in Lewis and Auburn, Maine since 1977. I work in central Maine, so our population has its roots in an old French-Canadian mill town population. We also have Bates College, so there's a pretty wide demographic spread from tradesmen, lumber industry, professionals, artistic and musical community, pretty broad. So the next step is to... Like most doctors, I spent most of my time and energy in the office working with patients, and then at the end of the day or in breaks during the day, I would do my notes. One day I was seeing a young couple with a new complicated diagnosis. They were going to need to see people in other communities, and I pointed out that they should get copies of all their notes and test results and bring it to all the places they go. And as I was writing a note specifically to give to the patient to take somewhere else, it was a very different note. It wasn't hard to do that note that way, but that stuck with me. I decided that I was going to improve my notes and give them to all my patients. And by the end of 6 months or so, I was giving all my patients copies of their notes at the end of the visit. That turned the note from my private journal to a collaborative tool that the patient and I could use to document and, more importantly, plan care.
He started typing in his notes during our appointment several years ago.
Doing the note open in a collaborative fashion out loud and giving them a copy was transformative for me in terms of my practice.
It gave me the sense that he was listening to what I was saying. I knew that my medical records would be correct, and I knew what was in my medical record.
Made it harder for us not to be on the same page. We had to work hard at that point not to be on the same page.
It's my body, by golly, and he is indicating that he respects me as owner and prime driver of this collection of cells.
It made the visits much more productive. The patient would see problems on the problem list and ask, say, oh, we haven't talked about that in a while. What's the status of that? It made it easier to have difficult conversations, and that was a huge surprise. Seeing the notes and doing it together made it easier for them to confide in me. It increased the trust because they weren't wondering what was going in the notes.
All symptoms at night? I mean, sometimes he'd type something and I'd say, no, that's not right. Or sometimes I'd say, that's not really true. Really what happened was this, and I would change my story. He'd back up and he'd write in what I really wanted to say.
I was working to change the note from a tool I used to remember what I was thinking to a tool the patient and I could use to change behavior.
Even when he wrote down things in my record that reflected poorly on me, on my behavior, I'm very glad that he wrote it down because it changed my behavior.
It's much easier to ask a patient when you do a plan, are there any steps in this plan you think we're going to struggle with, as opposed to, are you going to be able to follow this plan?
I am a much better patient, and I feel much more respected and empowered as a person able to take part in my own healing.
When people ask me about how sharing notes affected how I felt about medicine and my life in general, I always have to smile because the answer is it was transformational, and my only regret is that I didn't start doing it much earlier. It didn't make things harder, and it didn't turn out to be the time suck that people have often said that it's going to be. OpenNotes made me do a better job, made me more efficient, made me feel better about it, and one big selling point is I went home at the end of every day finished with all my notes.